Good morning, everyone. My name is Mark Hallett, and I'm Director of Grants Programs here at Illinois Humanities. We're really excited to have all of you on this call this morning to walk through the General Operating Grants Opportunity 2025. We would love it if all of you who are on this call, if you want to, introduce yourselves in the chat. Maybe name, organization, location, or some version thereof, just to know who all's here. And we are going to be taking questions, but we'll be taking them at the end of this presentation. And there's a reason for that, and that is that we're going to be recording this to be able to share out with people later. And so it's just a little bit cleaner if we can have the presentation, and then go into people's questions afterwards, if that makes sense. So again, thank you all for being here. We're really excited about this. We have a great lineup with a guest speaker and with my colleague Bibi and Zerlene behind the scenes, and a great team over here eager to share and eager to hear your questions. And also if you have questions or comments or anything that we aren't able to address today, of course, we are on hand, and that's what we're here for, to help answer any further questions. Next slide. So this is a brief agenda of what we're going to be covering. We'll be doing a quick overview of Illinois Humanities in 2025 grants. Then we'll jump into the heart of today's conversation, which is the general operating grants, which I know you all are eager to hear about. Then we're going to be hearing the perspective of a grantee of Illinois Humanities. Actually, she's really a remarkable fundraiser, so we're eager to hear Kira Rogers and her comments. And then we're going to hear from my colleague Bibi, walking through our grants portal and a number of tips around how to do that successfully. And then again, we'll open things up for Q&A. So again, my name's Mark Hallett, and then we'll be hearing from Kira and then from Bibi Cooper Brown. So who are we? Sounds like a very humanities question. Illinois Humanities is a statewide nonprofit organization. We're a 501c3 that activates the humanities through free public programs, grants, and educational opportunities that spark conversation, foster reflection, build community, and strengthen civic engagement for everyone in the state of Illinois. And we were founded in 1974. Our vision, and I actually love these words, is an Illinois where the humanities are central to making the state more just, creative, and connected. So a little bit about our values. We believe in centering people's experiences, histories, and cultures, making and protecting space for the exchange of challenging ideas, meaningful dialogue, and personal reflection, actively promoting equity, uplifting diversity, and ensuring inclusion, and finally, intentional partner-centered relationships that build social capital and strengthen social cohesion, particularly for underserved and historically disenfranchised communities. This is a little bit of a snapshot of our impact as an organization from last year. So obviously you can see a map of Illinois on the right, and the dots represent grants that were made or programs that we held or that partners held. So more than 14,000 Illinoisans were served through grants and public programming. 90% of our grant dollars supported organizations and projects in underserved communities. 100% of Illinois legislative districts throughout the state received access to free public programming. And we worked nurturing 9 regional hubs in rural towns and communities throughout the state. So this is just a little bit about how we work as a grants team, and it's meant to illustrate the fact that beyond the dollars that we give out through grants, we try to do more, and we try to help strengthen small cultural organizations. Again, we fund programs, partnerships, and planning but also offering capacity building opportunities, serving underserved communities, and doing searches in Forefront. If anyone has a grant area that you're interested in learning more about what grants have been made in that area, we would be more than happy to do a search for you through an organization that we're a member of called Forefront. Amplifying community-based work. So we try to use to harness communications to help our partners out. So we do a monthly spotlight interview. We do stories of impact blog posts, and we help out. Our comms team actually helps out by harnessing social media to get the word out around upcoming events, etc. And then finally, we convene and connect partners. And so we encourage partnerships. We do a bi-monthly grantee e-newsletter. We host First Fridays for executive directors. If you're interested in learning more about that, let us know. And we hold other events. So just again, an overview of the grants program. Of course, this is public humanities work, but it's work that emphasizes capacity building, civic engagement, and community building. So now we're going to get to the heart of today's presentation, and that is the general operating grants opportunity. So the goals of this grants program, i.e. the general operating grants, are to support the growth and development of organizations serving Illinois through public humanities programming, strengthening the nonprofit humanities landscape in the state by building organizational capacity, and finally ensuring the future of humanities in Illinois includes thriving organizations with experience bringing public humanities to their communities. So what are the basics about this general operating grants opportunity? The deadline, you might know this already, is August 15th, 2025 at 5 p.m. Central. You can apply on the Illinois Humanities Online portal. Note that this is a one-step process. It's not a letter of intent and then a full proposal. It's just one proposal. We'll be announcing these awards in November of this year. The grant amount is $10,000. This is unrestricted funding, and we're going to talk more about this later, and I think Kiwa's going to touch on this. But you are able to use these funds where you most see them as being needed for your organization. And we're probably going to be funding as many as 14 organizations through this opportunity. So what does eligibility look like for this grants category? Applicants must be a humanities-based organization in Illinois with an annual budget of $250,000 or less. It must be a nonprofit tax-exempt organization that's in good standing or work with a fiscal sponsor. Organizations cannot apply if they already have an open Vision Action Multiplier or 2024 General Operating Grant. And previous Illinois Humanities grantees must be up to date on reporting for any prior grants from Illinois Humanities. So what do we mean by good standing? So must be 501c3 applicants in good standing with the IRS, or if not in good standing with the IRS, you can work with a fiscal sponsor. And applicants must have submitted final reports for any previous funding, again, from Illinois Humanities. So how do we define this thing called the humanities? Broadly, the humanities help us understand and interpret what it means to be human. Participating in the humanities equips us to form a diverse society. Now, in academic settings, the humanities encompass studies of art, art history, communications, culture, ethnic and gender studies, ethics, folklore and folk culture, literature, languages, music, dance, theater, history, and philosophy. So it's this long list of disciplines that we consider the humanities. At Illinois Humanities, our focus is actually more on what we call the public humanities. And these are humanities that happen outside of academic institutions. So we create and support programs and modes of engagement that emphasize curiosity, questioning, and dialogue. So what sorts of organizations do we consider humanities organizations? And so this is a list that we've acquired from the National Humanities Index and edited slightly to meet the needs of Illinois groups. But it's basically cultural and ethnic organizations, history organizations, humanities education and humanities museums, libraries and archives, media, journalism, and documentary organizations, and then consortia or alliances or collectives of the above named groups. So we thought it would be helpful to share a list of recent grantees in this category, just so that you can see the types of organizations that have received general operating funding in the past. So this is from last fall. So the grantees announced at that time included the American Indian Association of Illinois, the Center for Native Futures, the Clinton County Historical Society, Guild Literary Complex, Heterodyne Broadcasting, Metro East Literacy Project, South Macon Public Library, and Western Illinois Museum. So what sort of a rubric is the grant review panel using to actually score applications that come in? So this is what we're going to be looking at here. So first of all, clarity and completeness of the application. That's pretty basic. Has the applicant supplied all of the required information, including all narrative questions and requested documents? Secondly, the experience of the organization. How strongly does the organization's core work focus on the humanities? Then experience with the community. Is the community well defined, first of all, but also does the applicant have experience working with and engaging with this community? And then we're looking at organizational growth and development. So to what degree is this organization actively planning for its future growth and development? And then finally, engagement with underserved groups. Does the organization provide rich opportunities for audience engagement and learning? And note that we generally let applicants define underserved, what it means for them and for their community. So what should you do before sitting down to actually fill out this application? And I think Kira's going to be talking about this also. So before you sit down, describe how your organization is rooted in the humanities. Describe how the general operating funding will help you to carry out your mission better. So note that that's different than a project grant, but we're still curious about how you see your organization sort of evolving and growing in the coming year. And then describe your organizational growth and development so far and where you are planning to go next. So now we are thrilled, and I can't see everyone on the call, so I'm assuming that Kira is here.
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, good, good, good. So we're excited to hear from Kira Rogers. And Kira, I'm not going to introduce you if that's okay. Maybe you can introduce yourself. But Kira is just a wonderful partner and has been a successful grant applicant. And Beyond Illinois Humanities in general is just really a wonderful fundraiser and fantastic colleague. So I'll pass things over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. And this is an incredible opportunity, and I really appreciate this invitation. And good morning, everybody. I hope you are all doing well. And I just wanted to just give a brief introduction of who I am, what I do. So right now I work for the city of Springfield for Mayor Misty Buscher. And then in the next week, I'll be transitioning to the governor's office of budget and management. So it's been quite the ride. And but still, my heart is near and dear to helping applicants understand, the type of grants that you'd be able to look for and brainstorming. And so I wanted to just sort of do a little bit of a general overview of the type of grants that Illinois Humanities is having, but specifically this one is more of the general operating grants. So they're not the same as ones that you probably have written before or other type of grants that you've looked for. These are a little bit different. So yeah, we can go into the next slide. Perfect. So again, like these general operating grants are not the same as project-based. And I think most of the grants that you look for will probably be project based. If you do find grants that are general operating grants, then hey, great, wonderful, but they're very, very rare sometimes. And so, but these are not about like those one-time deliverables like we're used to with some of the project-based grants. And I'll give you an example here, and I actually have an example we're going to go through later. But just for starters, you might be used to some of those grants that say, hey, we need to make sure little Johnny is going through this program and did he complete this, this, and this? Great. All right, we're done. So that's typically what you're used to in that it's like project based. But that's not what this particular grant is. We really want to look for, like we want to help you understand, like this is to support the project, the whole organization, and that the project is a small part of the organization, right? So maybe you need some other things to help you get going in some of the other areas, making sure that you basically have the foundation set so that you can run some of those programs. So that's the reason why, as you see with the second bullet point here, these Gen Ops grants, they typically support the overall mission, like the day-to-day work that the organization would have. Um, these tend to be more flexible type of funding grants, and that you would see things for maybe salaries. Maybe you had people who were, working volunteer, they were volunteers, and maybe you want to be able to give them a stipend or give them some kind of a salary. Well, this would be one of those type of grants where you might be able to add something like that. Maybe you have utilities, or if you're running operations out of a building, perhaps you need some assistance with, the water or the power or something like that. Like those would be some of the kinds of things that you could explore. And of course, you would want to run all of those ideas by your Illinois Humanities team to make sure that the funding is allowable costs, right? So, that your expenses are allowable costs, sorry. If you even want to think about things like strategic planning, marketing, maybe you found out, hey, we're doing pretty well. Word of mouth has done well for us, but now we need a website. And we didn't think that through at the beginning. So now we need a website. Now we need somebody to help us plan how to get that going. Um, Maybe you have a website, but it's not quite the way you want it. Maybe you want to reach more people. Maybe you want to expand your borders. This would be a great time to explore how that might look for your organization. Maybe you found out that, hey, we've done great. We've got 3 or 4 years worth of data and information now. Now we need to probably think about hiring an evaluation team to help us understand whether or not this is the type of project that are we moving in the right direction? Do we want to move in another direction? That would be more along the lines of what you would use some of these Gen Ops grants for. So think of it again, the second to last bullet point here, well, third to last bullet point. Think of it as a long-term investment for your overall mission, the overall project itself. And then so these project grants are more like project-based grants are more specific, but just remember with your Gen Ops, it's more overall. Okay. And your tone when you're writing these types of grants, remember that this is the overall type of grant, right? It's not very, very specific like the project-based grants would be. Okay, next slide. So this is just a cute little visual I like to use whenever doing these because it's a straightforward visual, right? And we're on the next slide, we're going to explain a little bit more, but this one's a straightforward. Screenshot this one if you need to. It kind of helps you remember the difference between your project base and your Gen Ops, right? So again, the focus for the Gen Ops is more entire organization. Your project base is very specific. Maybe you are, if you have, I keep using after school programs because those are the ones that I often work with people for. If you have an after school program, you're trying to write something for third and fourth graders. Well, that's very specific, but maybe the whole entire building needs some work. So that would be an example of your Gen Ops. Thinking about your budget too, and I know that we get a lot of questions about budgets and how to basically make sure that these are moving in the right direction. So your budgets, think about it with the Gen Ops proposal, it's going to be very broad. It's going to include overhead. Whereas your project based, they're really tied to like the cost for that specific project, as most grants are, right? Evaluation, think about like your organizational outcomes, what it is that the org is looking to do long term, as we've kind of already stated a few times today. But your evaluation for your project-based proposals, again, these are project specific. How many people completed your program, right? Like that kind of thing. Does that make sense? Cool. And so your flexibility is usually higher flexibility with Gen Ops grants because now you're looking to support the organization. Maybe you have need of new equipment, printers, whatever it might be. different items like that, but it's not just for a specific program. Again, it's for the whole organization. Whereas the flexibility for project-based grants are usually limited to whatever your guidelines say that you can do with that grant. So that's the reason why the flexibility is low. Okay. All right. And this is a more specific, again, using an after-school program just because purview. So, but with this, you can see like the first category, and I just came up with just a few things for the categories here. So we're talking wages, program supplies, transportation, marketing and outreach, space rental, which is usually something you won't see in very project-based specific grants. You won't see those usually. You might, but you won't really see a lot of that. And then you also see this comparison between what a Gen Ops looks like and then like a very program specific. So again, screenshot this one too, and this is just a $10,000 one. But you can see the difference just using this first one with staff wages. Usually when you have a program specific type grant, you're looking for wages for like somebody that might facilitate a workshop for your kids, right? If you have to after school program. However, for your Gen Ops grants, you can actually see that this is where you do get a chance to look for ways to compensate the executive director or any administrative assistants that you might have, like things like that, right? You don't typically put those into a grant because they may not necessarily be working on the individual project, but they may be securing like the whole entire operation as a whole. The individual project, you would have to bill in the individual salaries specific to that one project for your after school program. However, you usually don't put your execs in there or your administrative assistants in there because their time is not necessarily coming from that one grant. Their time is going to the entire organization. So that's when you get your operations grants, you are able to then bill in some of their time. Is that so? Somebody give me some head nods. Is this making sense so far? Cool. All right. You're with me. Awesome. Okay. Same thing. Looking at the second line, and we won't go through all of these just for the sake of time, but looking at your program supplies, do you see how under the Gen Ops, you might have like $1,000 for postage or office supplies, things like that, that might, again, support the whole organization. Whereas on the after school program side, now you're looking at like art materials that maybe the kids will use, right? Specific to that program. You might have books, you might have snacks specific to that program. So, but postage could be used for the entire organization. And maybe that's just, a line item that you might have had to cut, or maybe you just didn't have the grant money coming in to support that specific thing. So now with Gen Ops grants, you can do that. Okay. Cool, cool. And we're holding questions till the end, correct?
That's right.
Yes. Okay. All right. So just some common things here as you are brainstorming about what you might want to use your Gen Ops grants for, just some kind of do's and don'ts here. And so best practices, when you are writing these, please don't assume that everybody knows exactly what you're trying to say. So make sure that it's clear when you're writing this. And be specific, be honest. Like, hey, once upon a time we had funding for postage. We could mail out as many, bulk mail brochures or any kind of other graphics that we wanted to, but we had some cuts. We are not able to really do that as much as we wanted to. Make sure your mission is clear, though, and that the people that you're writing the grant to, in this case, Illinois Humanities, make sure they can understand your mission. Again, they want to make sure that they're funding things for organizations that are planning to be around for a while, right? We don't necessarily want to just fund things for a one-time event or something like that, not with the Gen Ops grants. Um, Also, you want to indicate that you do have strong leadership and that your governance of your program is one that's moving forward in a certain direction. And you need this type of funding to help you get there, right? So that's kind of what we're looking for in these areas. Now, some common pitfalls for this people sometimes are not clear with what they want. Their mission is not clear. It's very vague. And it seems like you're kind of grasping at straws, trying to pull things together. That can be sometimes hard to understand your vision and purpose. It's not that we don't think your program is great. We do, but we just want to make sure we understand your vision, your purpose, and where you're going. Um, Also, I want to specifically draw your attention to this one. I know that we are all getting used to AI and Chat GPT and all those things, and I understand that we use them to our advantage, but don't use them as your catch-all be-all, right? Because they do have flaws. They're easy to spot, especially for those of us who are professors and we can catch when our students are doing it. So, so we just want to be very clear. But overly technical jargon, things that don't really even sound like a human wrote it. And it's not even really giving you like a clear flow. Just if you use ChatGPT, great. Just go back and edit and make sure that it's conveying what you really want it to convey. Okay. And keep in mind, other people might also use ChatGPT, so we could see the same answer like 5 times. Okay, if you're just doing a copy and a paste. So you just want to make sure that you are that you're tweaking and editing as you need to. Also, weak financials or the lack of transparency. Like, it's great that you're like looking to apply for one of these grants, but let's be clear, like where you really think your finances would, the financial support would be best utilized, and be able to explain why. Sometimes when you are getting funding from different places, they may ask you to do an interview with them. They want to learn more. They want to know you. This is sort of like that get to know, the meet and greet, so on and so forth. They just want to know who you are. So be able to describe, what's really going on with the finances. Let them know if you've not yet had an audit. That could potentially be something that you might be able to ask the Illinois Humanities team. Is this something we can ask for, if we were to be awarded? You could ask that question too. And again, remember the difference. This is the Gen Ops, not the specific project proposal. All right. And then make sure that as you are writing for one of these types of grants, that you don't ignore the mission and the vision and the values of Illinois Humanities. They want to make sure that everybody that they are supporting is indeed going in the direction that they are going for where they typically are funding. Does that make sense, everybody? Give me hands up, thumbs up, yes, no. All right, wonderful. Excellent. All right. Perfect. Thank you so much. And I'll turn it back over to Mark.
Eva, thank you. That was amazing. Honestly, that was so helpful. I started to take screenshots and then I remembered that we're actually going to be sharing back with everyone the recording as well as the PowerPoint deck. So don't worry if there was anything that you wanted to look further into or recap or anything. You'll be getting all of this again. So that was amazing. Thanks. Really remarkable. And I think it's time to turn things over to Bibi, who's going to walk through the online platform that we use.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mark, and thank you, Kira. Um, Hi, everyone. My name is BB Cooper Brown. I use he, him pronouns, and I am the program officer at Illinois Humanities. I'm going to show you how to access the application online and get submitted, as well as go over a couple of tips and give you all a sneak peek into the narrative questions that are on the application. So let's get into it. To access our grant applications online, you'll want to visit our website. So that's illinoishumanities.org/grants. And you'll see right at the top of the page, there is a button that says Online Portal. And that's where you can enter the Illinois Humanities Online Portal to submit your application. This button also exists on the General Operating Grants application, but all buttons lead to the same place. This is what our login page looks like for our platform. If you've applied for a grant before in the past or a different opportunity at Illinois Humanities, you likely already have an account and you can just use that same credentials to apply for this opportunity. If you haven't applied for an Illinois Humanities opportunity in a long time, then you'll need to create a new account. If you suspect that you may have your organization may have previously applied, but you yourself don't have an account, you can always reach out to us and we'll be able to check the system for you and get you set up with an account. Once you're logged in, where you land is on your applicant dashboard, and you'll want to look in the upper left-hand corner for this apply button here. So it's like a little page with a dog-eared flap with the word apply next to it, and that will take you to our apply page, which looks like this. To start an application, you're just going to click on the blue apply button all the way on the right in line with the General Operating Grants opportunity, and that will officially begin your application. There are a few options for how you want to prepare your answers for the application. If you click on the question list button, which again is near the top of your screen on that right side, it will download the application questions, just the questions themselves. So you can print it out, write your answers. You're also welcome to transfer the questions into a Word document or Google Drive document and answer your questions there. But note that if you're working outside of the platform, please be mindful of the character limit for the narrative questions. The character limits, they include punctuation and spaces. And there is, as someone who's filled out applications, there's nothing more devastating of creating the perfect answer in Word and then transferring it to the platform and you realize that you have to edit. So if you make note of those character limits beforehand, that'll help you overall with your process to make sure you get all the right words in with the amount of space that's allotted. Once you have done your first save or answered a couple of questions, this application button, also on the right next to this question button, will appear. It won't appear prior to you putting in responses because the point of this button is to print out a PDF that has the questions as well as the responses that you've given, right? So if you don't have any responses imported, it's not there. But once you do, you can view this application packet. It's a great tool to use, when you're in your final drafts, right before you're about to submit. If you want to print it out, read it to a friend, or send it in an email, send it over to someone to take a look at. This is a really great option because it'll have the question and your response in line together. Okay, so I want to talk to you a little bit about our narrative questions that we have for the general operating grants. The first question is going to ask you for an overview of your programs. So listing your most significant programs and giving a 1 to 2 sentence description of each. This is where you can really let the mission of your organization shine, letting us know how your work manifests in these programs, and really being able to align your organization's work with the public humanities. Then we're going to be asking you about your organizational growth and development. So describe what your organization looks like now. Where do you see your agency going in the next 2 to 3 years? What steps have you taken or will you take to get to that vision? You answer these questions according to your organization's needs. So this can include your plans and dreams for programming, for staffing, for community engagement, all of those wonderful things that Kira was talking about. I'm trying to get my website off the ground, or we're going to expand new areas. This is the narrative question where all of those amazing details go in, and you get to tell the reader all about the vision of your organization. And then finally, we're going to ask you about the impact of funds. So how would a general operating grant help your organization at this time? This is a great question to talk about. It's answering why these funds and why now. So you really get to make the case about how funding will launch your organization into its next phase. This is where you really, you also really get to let let the reader into your organization in another way, not just your vision, but you can talk about this is where my organization has been, and I can see that we're at this pivotal moment that will do this. Or without the funding, we wouldn't be able to hire someone to make a website for us, and that might impact us negatively in this way. So this is where you're really building the case to let the reader know that their funds will be put to very good use at your organization. It aligns with the funder's priorities and values, and you're the best person, obviously. We're all so excited to read your proposals. So just know that. Know that every reader is truly rooting for you. So when you write these answers, you're writing to someone who is ready to applaud your work. So there's no pressure. Now, save, review, and submit. At the bottom of your application, you can click the Save button to save your progress at any time. It also does a little bit of auto saving, I think about every 30 seconds or so. And then when you are ready to submit your application, you click on the blue Submit Application button. And note that you cannot edit your application after you submit. So you want to make sure that you've reviewed it, everything looks accurate, you've told the story how you want to, and then you can click your submit button. A fun tip about our platform is that when you save your application, it will take you to a confirmation page that will not only confirm that your application has been saved, but it will also alert you to any missing questions that you might still need to answer. So that way you can go back and look at it. I always like to recommend one last save before the last submit, just to double check your work. And the platform should reject your application if you've missed a required question, but you always just want to make sure, just in case, because technology can sometimes be just as unreliable as humans. So we have to work together to make it right. And that's it. And just know if you have any issues at all navigating the platform, you can always email me. My email will be on the next slide. You could also email the entire grants team at communitygrants@illinoishumanities.org. And I'll pass back to you, Mark.
BB, thank you. Again, thunderous applause. Thank you, Kira. Thank you, BB.